Hi, I'm Venus O'Hara and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the power of orgasm. Wow. My mission in life is to raise orgasmic awareness, and today I'm going to talk about my orgasmic journey and how my orgasms have evolved over the years. So let me just check my notes here on a piece of envelope. Okay, so my very first orgasms were nocturnal orgasms, and I had those when I was a teenager up until my mid-20s. So what happened to me, well, I used to just wake up in the middle of the night sometimes having an orgasm. I never remembered my dreams, but all I remember was just feeling these spasms on my vulva, and it was very pleasant, and I just felt the need to grab a pillow and kind of rub myself against it until those spasms subsided, and it was a very almost disorientating experience sometimes. And I don't remember the first time, because when you wake up like that in the middle of the night, I was half asleep, so it was like, is this really happening? And then often I would just fall asleep again. So sometimes I would go to bed and think, I wonder if it's going to happen tonight. The worst time it ever happened to me was once I was sharing a bed with a female friend, nothing dodgy, and in the middle of the night I woke up and I was like, wow. I wasn't moaning, but I was, all those spasms in my pelvis were quite noticeable, and I do wonder to this day if she was asleep at that point. Anyway, yes, that was the thing. I used to have to explain it to my first boyfriends, just in case I would wake up having spasms. I think if I'd been with a boyfriend, it would have been a huge turn on for them, but it never happened. Okay, so the next orgasms I had were with my first boyfriends through penetration, which is crazy because at the time when I was discovering my sexuality, I used to read a lot of female women's magazines, and they were all talking about clitoral orgasms or vaginal orgasms, and I thought, because I was having these vaginal orgasms very easily during penetration, I just completely disregarded my clitoris, and so even cunnilingus was never a big thing for me. It was just always penetration, orgasm, and it was a very easy way for me to reach orgasm. And I think this is because I have a very sensitive A spot, which is a very sensitive area near the clitoris, and if I stimulate the G spot or the A spot, I just had an orgasm very quickly. So I almost relied upon my first boyfriends to have orgasms, and which was great during the actual act or during our relationship, but the implications of that are quite profound, really. It meant that I was almost reliant on a man to have an orgasm, and that's not a good place to be in, because I used to have to maybe put up with things that maybe were not so great in the relationship just because I desired the regular sex. And then sometimes when I was single, I would spend months and months without any orgasm at all. Maybe just the nocturnal ones might have just surprised me from time to time. But I didn't really know how to give myself that sensation. So for me, in relationships, sex was really important. It still is important, but it was so necessary for me. And yeah, so I think I did put up with things that I shouldn't have just because I wanted good sex. So then the next type of orgasms, well, then I discovered sex toys, and I bought a rabbit when I was 27, I think, and it really changed my life. I've made another video about this, my first sex toy. I'll put the link in the description below. And it really changed my life. I remember buying this rabbit, and it didn't work for me immediately. But what I did was, whenever I felt a little bit horny or something, I used to use it and just see what happens. But then one day I was using it, and it completely took me by surprise, and I had an orgasm like the ones I had in the nocturnal orgasms. It was like a very clitoral, lots of spasms around the vulva. It wasn't exactly the same as the orgasms I was having during penetration, because it was just it was incredible, and it completely blew my mind. And once after that very first time, then I practiced and practiced until I was able to establish my own methods of reaching orgasm on my own without having to put up with a toxic relationship or a toxic boyfriend. So that was an incredible experience for me. That's why I feel really strongly now about sex toys and orgasmic independence, because it really is life-changing, not just for your sexual empowerment, but also in your relationships. I can safely say that since I discovered my orgasmic independence, I haven't really had a toxic relationship, fortunately. So that's wonderful. And that doesn't mean to say that sex toys replace sex. They absolutely don't. But having the power and ability to give myself orgasms, really good orgasms whenever I want, has changed things for me incredibly. So, and then I can't even read my writing. What is this? Okay, so then when I started getting really into sex toys, I wasn't just using them for having an orgasm or a sexual release. I realized that orgasm was much more than sexual release. In fact, it was like a pain relief. Sometimes it's whenever I had menstrual pain, I found that an orgasm was like half a paracetamol. That's to say 2 hours of pain relief. And I never have headaches, fortunately, but if I did have a headache, I know what I would do. And also for insomnia, I found that orgasm is an excellent muscle relaxant. And when I used to write more articles in the past, I'm still writing articles, but now it's more sex toy reviews. But I used to write a lot of articles for Spanish press about 8 years ago. And whenever I had writer's block, I would go to my bed with my phone and get a vibrator and suddenly whatever seemed blurry or hazy to me when I was at my desk suddenly was clear again, and I had lots of ideas coming to me. So I was fantasizing and then using a toy, and then I would think, oh yes, great idea. And I would grab my phone with the other hand and then write myself an email, or several emails sometimes, and then whenever I went back to my desk after the orgasm, then I would have all these ideas ready to continue with and put them incorporate them in the article that I was writing. So but I must admit that I did rely on orgasm for too many things, especially when it got to the point where, let's say if I put a pizza in the oven and I had to wait 15 minutes, I'm like, what am I going to do for 15 minutes? Let's have an orgasm. So I do think I got a little bit addicted. And I remember one day, I think I had 6 orgasms in one day, and I was with a guy at the time and he was like, what, that's crazy. So I do think it got a little bit excessive. So I had to stop myself really from masturbating so often, and only use it when I couldn't sleep, or I had a sex toy to test, or if I was really horny or something. So I just reduced my orgasms substantially in the last few years. But if you've been watching my videos, you'll know that I've been talking about, well, I haven't, not in detail, but I've had a profound spiritual awakening in the last year, and this has affected my sexuality in a big way. On one hand, I'm discovering tantra and conscious sacred sexuality, and when I'm masturbating now, I'm not just doing it for a sexual release. I've discovered something called sexual transmutation, which involves channeling your sexual energy, or basically, how would I describe it? So I'm using my sexual energy, I'm channeling it towards other greater needs in my life, non-sexual needs. So I've written a list of things that I want in life, like a wish list, and I dedicate an orgasm to each thing I want. So I'm using methods of visualization when I'm masturbating, because I use my imagination all the time, and I have a very active, capable imagination. I've never ever masturbated to porn, for example. I never just watch images and touch myself. And I'm always closing my eyes and imagining something. So instead of imagining whatever sexual scenario might be turning me on, there are elements of my fantasies that that reflect something that I want in life, something that's non-sexual. So so now my masturbation sessions are taking much longer because I'm doing this visualization process, and I'm also listening to binaural beats. I'm not an expert on binaural beats, but I think it's really interesting to listen to music that's gonna help you get in the mood and help you visualize your dreams. And so that's really helped me. And it's become more of a meditation process, and it's taking me a long time. It could take me maybe 45 minutes now to reach orgasm, but during this process I'm not just thinking let's have an orgasm, because that's what my orgasms were like a few years ago. It used to take me 5-10 minutes only, whereas now I'm really concentrating on the visualization of the things I want. And I find it's really powerful, and I'm starting to see things happening in my life thanks to sexual transmutation. It's very interesting. So so there you have my orgasmic journey and the power of orgasm. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and see you next time.